Hello everybody, K-Whip here, and welcome to another Destiny 2 video. In today's video, we're going to be ranking the Hunter subclasses in PvP, and not just the subclasses Night Stalker, Arc Strider, and Gunslinger, but more specifically each of the paths you can choose in them, so 9 options in total. Because you have the option of going with top tree, bottom tree, or middle tree for each of the subclasses, so we're going to be going specifically into each of those and figuring out which are the best. Now before I tell you my choices, let me go into how I kind of analyze each of the subclasses. I analyzed their super strength, being kind of the average kills you get with each super, as well as how good they are at shutting down other supers, a little bit to a lesser extent for the second point. I also looked at their grenades and melees for each subclass, even though grenades would be the same within subclasses, of course. And then finally I looked at any enhancements to the neutral game. So now, starting off with what I think is the worst PvP subclass in the game for hunters, it is Bottom Tree Night Stalker, the Way of the Pathfinder. Now some of what this subclass has to offer is it gives you Quiver, which makes it so you can shoot your tether multiple times. It gives you Vanish and Smoke, which allows you to go invisible with your melee ability. It makes your grenade effect last twice as long, and when you do damage with your grenade, it will grant you melee energy. Now the reason I chose this as the worst subclass for hunters is because I think it has either the worst super or the second worst super, and that's because Tether is not a very easy ability to land, especially if you're not very close to people. And if you don't actually hit someone with your tether using this node, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to be tethering them, and they are usually going to be able to kill you or get away without much difficulty. And so you don't get a ton of kills with this version of tether, maybe more so than you do with the single shot tether, but it's definitely worse at shutting down supers than the other option, as you'll kind of see demonstrated on the screen right now. And when people use tether, realistically they're usually using it to shut down other supers because it's not a strong offensive super at all. So for the purpose it's kind of supposed to serve, I think the top tree Night Stalker's super with the single shot tether with a longer range is a little bit better. And also, if you're not careful with this super, this might happen to you. And then the neutral game enhancements are decent. Your Vanish and Smoke can make for pretty good flank routes. The grenade lasting twice as long could be decent for zoning in something like elimination, to like throw it on a res so people can't get it. But overall it doesn't have a ton of benefit in the neutral game, and the super is probably the worst or second worst in the game. So for that reason, Bottom Tree Night Stalker is 9th on my list. However, it was really close to being 8th. The 8 and 9 spots didn't really have a ton of differentiation between them, and that is because slot number 8 goes to the Way of the Trapper, which is Top Tree Night Stalker, which I've mentioned a little bit already. And this is the other version of tether that shoots just one tether that can be a trap and will wait for people, but it has increased range and lasts longer. Then some other things that you get with this perk tree is that you have a smoke that can also be used as a trap. This can be decent for starting 1v1 gunfights and getting people slowed down, something that doesn't have that effect in Bottom Tree. Then you can also sprint and sneak faster while having enhanced tracker. Basically just makes your radar a little bit better, which is actually fairly beneficial. You can tell where people are a little bit easier, and that just helps your awareness quite a bit. And one of the final things with this is that if you dodge, it makes you invisible for a little bit. And this would be nice because you can do it so frequently, but it doesn't last very long, so you can't make any very sneaky plays with it. And it's just kind of a temporary thing to get you off radar for a little, so you can sneak away into cover or something. And so this is low on the list for similar reasons as the last selection on my list. It's because the super is not very good. It is the worst or second worst in the game. It's pretty uncommon to get many kills with this super, and offensively it does not work very well at all because it takes a while for the tether to actually fly out, hit a target, and then spread out to tether anything around it. So you kind of have to use this tether preemptively, or else you're going to struggle with it a lot and it's probably going to get you killed more often than not. And this can also be pretty good for shutting down supers if you use it nearby you once you hear a super popped. Then it's just kind of a protective shield for you, and it's pretty good as a shutdown super. Now moving on to my next entry on the list, it's probably going to surprise a fair amount of you because it's a very popular option in PvP actually. and that is the Way of 1,000 Cuts, which is Middle Tree Gunslinger, aka Blade Barrage. Now the reason that this is ranked so poorly is because the neutral game on this loadout is as bad as it gets. The entire perk tree is centered around its throw knives, which in PvP are really bad. The first node gives you the Blade Barrage super, then it gives you knives that burn targets, then it makes it so you recharge your knives faster if you get kills with your knives, and then your dodge recharges faster while people are burning from your knives. So it's all centered around the throwing knife in this build. The problem is, this is the worst version of the throwing knife in PvP. The max damage they can do is 49 on a headshot per knife, so you can get like up to 150 if you hit 3 crits. However, this is very rare. You're usually only going to be landing 1 or 2 knives, and it's very difficult to land precision hits with these. So most of the time you're probably going to hit maybe 1 or 2 body shots and have like 60 some damage with the throw knives. And these knives are just really an inconsistent option and not a good melee whatsoever. So the build being entirely centered around that may be good in PvE, but PvP it just does not work out well. And then the super, you can get a decent amount of kills with it if people are really bunched up. However, it really shines as a shutdown super. It's probably one of the better shutdown supers in the game, and a bit more consistent than Tether, which we talked about earlier. Then I also think the grenades for Gunslinger are better than the grenades for Stalker, so that also factors into why the Blade Barrage subclass is above the other 2 Tethers. But overall, ranks 9, 8, and 7 are really close, and there can definitely be some movement in between them. Now for the next entry on the list, it is the Way of the Warrior, which is top tree Arc Strider, and this is another build that is centered around melees. Your melees will give you health regen and increase your melee damage temporarily. Melee kills recharge your dodge ability, and dodging increases your melee range and lunge. Then finally, after dodging, each Arc Staff hit creates a damaging lightning aftershock, which doesn't really come into play in PvP. So this is the next best subclass because its grenade is pretty solid, with arc bolts being one of the best options for Hunter. I'd say that their grenade options are about equal with Gunslinger, but maybe both of them are better than Stalker. And then the melee is actually pretty dang good for this subclass. The only problem is, for it to be really emphasized in your build, you have to emphasize it and change the way you play. I felt like I kind of had to force dodges before fights or in the middle of fights to try to get that better melee. And even though the difference is noticeable in the range, it just didn't seem all that beneficial and didn't enhance my gameplay all that much. That being said, the super of Arc Staff is still really quite good. It's a strong roaming super that can pick up a lot of kills, and actually isn't that bad for shutting down supers if you know how to use it. If you do the quick melee attack followed by its range attack, that will usually kill any super, as long as you don't have that awkward phase where you both kind of hit each other at the same time and you both don't do damage. And so if you use Arc Staff right, it can be pretty good at shutting down supers. Now for the number 5 entry on my list, it is going to be the Way of the Sharpshooter, which is bottom tree Gunslinger. And some things that this class gives you is a throw knife that will recharge if you get a precision kill with it. You get more super energy with precision kills. You can hit precision kills with the golden gun, which will generate orbs, which can actually generate a lot of orbs, like 5 per super if you're getting 3 kills. And then also if you hit a headshot with Golden Gun, then it'll increase its damage and duration. So this subclass is pretty good. Its version of Golden Gun is fairly strong. It can last extremely long if you are hitting those precision hits with it, and that can make it more consistent for you picking up 3 kills per super. Also, precision hits on supers will be a 1-hit kill, and if you hit a precision hit on someone to get that increased damage on your Golden Gun, I think just a body shot will be a kill on a super. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but I think I had a clip in here where I did do that. And then the throw knife on this class can be fairly decent. It will be a good option when people are pushing you, and if you hit headshots with it, you can just about always have your knife up, which is really nice. However, hitting headshots with throw knives is far more difficult in this game than it was in like Destiny 1, so this perk isn't as valuable as it used to be, and for that reason this subclass is a little worse than it potentially could have been. And then also, getting kills with Golden Gun is just a little bit more challenging on this subclass node than like the 6-shot Golden Gun, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Because you don't have any perks making it easier to land shots with the Golden Gun, and you're going for precision most of the time, you'll tend to miss a few more shots than you maybe would with the other version of Golden Gun, and so that's why I consider this one a little bit worse. Now the next selection is the Way of the Wind, which is bottom tree Arc Strider. And some benefits that this has is that sprinting recharges your dodge ability, and you also have a increased sprint speed. When you melee someone, they're disoriented and so are nearby enemies. When you're critically wounded, melees and grenades will recharge faster, and then you are also harder to kill while dodging. Now this is another situation where between this and the Gunslinger that I just covered could kind of go either way. But with this subclass, I just think that the super is maybe a little bit better, and the neutral game might be a little bit better as well, because you'll typically get a few more kills with arc staff than you do with that version of golden gun, I would say. And also this just provides a lot of passive benefits to you that you don't have to change your playstyle at all for. And some of the effects can be really potent, especially like the sprinting, recharging your dodge ability. You can get your dodge back really fast, and that's quite valuable with your dodge making you take less damage. And if you also pair this subclass with something like Wormhusk Crown, where your dodge can give you more health, then that just becomes even more valuable and can help your survivability a ton. Now for the number 3 entry on my list, which is really close to the number 2 entry on my list, is the Way of the Current, which is Middle Tree Arc Strider. And this allows you to deflect projectiles while you're in your super, gives you a melee uppercut that can do like 130 damage or so, that kind of splits across the ground. Lightning Weave, which makes it so melee hits will increase your reload speed, and that's very noticeable. And then Ebb and Flow, which is a perk that doesn't really have any effects in PvP. But this is a subclass that is really good because the super is extremely strong. Being able to deflect people's fire while you're in your super and taking just about no damage whenever you want is an extremely beneficial thing and greatly affects the survivability of your super, making this probably the second best or maybe the best super for hunters in the game. And then also the melee is pretty strong with this build. It works very well for like shotgun meleeing. Your melee can connect from very far away, so you can get that shotgun melee from pretty significant distances. And it can also just be a very good method for taking out weak opponents. Now onto the number 2 entry of my list. It is Way of the Outlaw, which is Top Tree Gunslinger. And this gives you a throwing knife that will explode after impact. Makes it so precision kills increases your reload speed for you and your allies, significantly improves your ability to hit shots with golden gun, and makes it so your golden gun can be fired quickly up to 6 times, and it will refund a bullet for every kill you get, which makes it so you can fire a lot of times. And this subclass has a lot going for it. Primarily, it's super. I'd say this is probably the best hunter super in the game, or its second best, behind the Arc Strider subclass that I just talked about, because you can get an insane amount of kills with this super quite easily. I almost got 2 7th columns with the super in the same day, but unfortunately they were just both Reapers. And not only can you pick up a ton of kills with this, it's also fairly good for shutting down supers, because you can spray with this golden gun pretty quickly, so getting 2 shots down onto an opponent is pretty quick. And you don't even have to really be precise. You can spam that trigger like 4 or 5 times to make sure you get them down, and you'll still have bullets to work with. And as long as you keep picking up kills, you'll still have bullets to kill with. So this super is just overall fantastic. I honestly don't like that it's in the game, because I feel like it kind of takes away from what Golden Gun is supposed to be. Golden Gun is supposed to be a precision ability. It's supposed to reward accuracy, and this is a subclass that makes it easier to land Golden Gun shots, and you can spray with it. So it kind of takes away the precision and accuracy aspect of Golden Gun, and makes it just easy to use. But I will admit, it's a ton of fun. Then also the melee on this subclass is pretty dang good. You can use it pretty traditionally as a throw knife and be able to finish people that are around half health if you land your shot. Or it can be kind of used as a second grenade. If people are hiding behind cover, you can throw a throw knife next to that cover and it will explode and do some damage to them. Granted, it isn't a bunch, it's only about like 70 some, but for weak people that are trying to hide, that can be enough sometimes. So this is an overall very good subclass. Now on to my number 1 selection. It is the Way of the Wraith, aka Spectral Blades, Middle Tree Night Stalker, whatever you want to call it. And this gives you Spectral Blades, which is its super, a smoke that will damage enemies over time, and then the key perk of this loadout, Flawless Execution. While crouched, precision kills will grant invisibility and true sight and increased melee range. And then while you have Flawless Execution, your melee attacks will weaken enemies and make them take more damage after you melee them. Now let's talk about Flawless Execution. This is a huge enhancement to the neutral game. Just for picking up a crouch kill, you will get 9 seconds of invisibility, and currently 3 seconds of true sight. It used to be 9 seconds of true sight. But let me tell you, that's still super valuable having those 3 seconds. You can see people through walls, be able to predict when they're going to challenge certain areas, pre-aim on them. When you pair this with a slug shotgun or a sniper rifle, it is extremely deadly. You'll be able to take out opponents before they even really know what happened. And this ability is so beneficial if you're someone that likes going for clips, and it helps your awareness of where people are on the map exponentially. Then the smoke is pretty good for 1v1 gunfights. It can give you a little bit of an advantage, slowing people down, blinding them, stuff like that. And then the super is also pretty solid, as it's very fast when you do your dash attack. You can pretty consistently catch up to people that are running away from you with that. And this can actually be decent for shutting down supers too if you do one of your quick attacks followed up by its strong attack. That can usually one-shot a super. The one downside of this super is that its armor is pretty low, and so that makes it probably a little bit weaker than like a traditional arc staff, but it's still pretty solid. And those are my rankings for hunter subclasses in PvP for this game. Again, a lot of these are kind of toss-ups, and there's not a lot separating some of them, but I chose as best as I could. And yeah, that will do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed watching. Let me know if you want me to do this for Warlocks, Titans, or just every subclass. Thanks for watching, and see you later.